So I want you to just picture taking a whole head of raw cauliflower, right, and tossing it into a blender with an entire completely unpeeled orange, like rind and all. Adding a splash of vinegar, a really heavy dash of black pepper, and then, actually drinking it.
Yeah, that is, I mean, it sounds pretty intense.
Right. If you are cringing right now, I mean, I completely understand. It honestly sounds like some salad dressing that just got horribly lost on its way to the dinner table. But, well, by the end of today's deep dive, you might actually be writing that exact recipe down.
You probably will be, honestly. Because while it is a totally jarring visual, the biological mechanism behind that specific smoothie is actually this masterpiece of functional chemistry.
Yeah.
Just completely flips how we, look at food utility.
And that is exactly what we are exploring today. We are unpacking this really comprehensive protocol that outlines complementary natural strategies for managing cancer. It brings in perspectives from like energy healing, yoga, ancient sciences, but it marries them with very specific modern nutritional biochemistry.
Right, which is a really unique overlap.
It really is. But before we get into the cauliflower smoothies or the mindset shifts, we definitely need to establish a non-negotiable baseline for this conversation.
Absolutely. The foundational rule here, and we cannot stress this enough, is that we are discussing purely supportive methods today. These are practices that are designed to run parallel to and completely alongside medical protocols, things like chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery.
Exactly. They are never, ever meant to replace traditional oncology. The overarching directive for you listening is to always follow your doctor's treatment protocols and, of course, consult licensed medical professionals.
Right. Because traditional medicine, its job is to attack the disease.
Yeah, and our mission today is to extract the practical, holistic lifestyle habits from this philosophy that are, well, entirely focused on supporting the body that is actually enduring that attack.
It is about building resilience, really. You,
Well,
you cannot just bomb the enemy. You have to fortify the castle.
Oh, fortify the castle. I actually really like that. So, okay, let's unpack this. Because before this philosophy even looks at what goes onto your dinner plate, it demands this rigorous audit of your mind and your social circle.
Which is so interesting.
It argues that you cannot successfully overhaul your physical health if your mental foundation is crumbling, basically.
And that makes perfect physiological sense.
Mm.
We so often treat the mind and the body as if they reside in totally different zip codes, but they are in constant chemical communication.
Yeah, and the protocol puts a massive emphasis on positive psychology here. Like, it insists on surrounding yourself with comforting people and intentionally curating positive associations.
Right.
It even argues that if you're isolated, you need to actively consume positive, motivating media to artificially keep yourself in a happy state. It isn't presented as just some, like, feel-good bonus. It is framed as a critical medical factor.
Yes, exactly.
But I guess my question is, how does watching a comedy special or calling a supportive friend actually fight cancer cells? I mean, what's the mechanism there?
Sure. Well, it doesn't fight the cells directly, right? But it fundamentally alters the battlefield. When you are terrified or isolated or just, doom scrolling negative media all day,
Which is so easy to do.
oh, incredibly easy. But when you do that, your nervous system interprets it as an immediate physical threat. So your body just floods with stress hormones, primarily cortisol and adrenaline.
Right, the whole fight or flight thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in short bursts, those hormones are totally fine, but chronic stress physically suppresses your immune response.
Wait, really? It actually suppresses it?
Yeah. It literally tells your white blood cells to stand down because the brain thinks, hey, we need all our energy right now to run away from a predator.
Wow. So by cultivating joy or comfort, you are actually, like, manipulating your own hormones.
Precisely. By intentionally forcing yourself into states of comfort and positive motivation, you are actively shifting your nervous system out of that fight or flight state. You're basically stopping that constant drip of cortisol.
Oh, I see.
And that buys your immune system the physiological bandwidth it desperately needs to get back online and actually do its job. It really is a defensive strategy disguised as self-care.
That makes the whole support team aspect so much more critical. Like, it's not just about emotional support. It's literally about regulating your nervous system.
100%.
And speaking of assembling the right team, there is this really fascinating distinction the source makes about who should be guiding your nutrition. Obviously, you have your oncologist directing the major offensives,
Awesome.
right?
The big picture stuff.
Yeah, but to build this protocol, it is highly recommended to get a referral to a registered dietitian or an RD.
And what's fascinating here is that the credential is absolutely vital. Not just a generic nutritionist, but a licensed RD.
Right. I was thinking about it like this: if your oncologist is the general commanding the war, directing the heavy artillery like chemo and radiation, the dietitian is kind of the quartermaster controlling the supply lines.
That is a great analogy.
They are figuring out exactly what fuel the troops need to keep marching. But I do have to ask, why is the source so adamant about getting a referral to an RD specifically? Like, why can't you just ask your primary doctor for a meal plan?
It really comes down to the depth of specialized training. Going back to your analogy, the general knows how to win the battle, but they might not know the exact micronutrient breakdown needed to keep a specific soldier from freezing in the trenches.
Oh, okay.
Medical doctors go through grueling, rigorous training to diagnose and treat diseases, but their specific, dedicated training in clinical nutrition is actually quite minimal in most cases.
Oh, really?
Yeah, whereas a registered dietitian has completed a 3 to 4 year graduate degree that is entirely focused on nutritional biochemistry and dietetics.
So they are the actual, like, mechanics of the human engine.
Exactly, because when your body undergoes severe treatments like chemotherapy,
Yeah.
your nutritional needs become incredibly volatile.
I can.
Treatments can alter your taste buds, they damage your digestive tract, and they drastically shift how you metabolize proteins. So you need a dedicated expert who can dynamically adjust your caloric and nutrient intake, like week by week.
Okay, that makes total sense. So positive psychology buys your immune system bandwidth, and the dietitian secures the supply lines. But where does the actual dietary work begin?
This is where it gets tough.
Yeah, because I always assumed holistic health meant immediately loading up on, I don't know, exotic superfoods. But the protocol argues that the real work doesn't start with addition. It starts with a brutal, immediate subtraction.
Yeah, addition by subtraction is usually the most powerful intervention. I mean, you have to stop pouring gasoline on the fire before you try to rebuild a house.
And it is so hardline about this. The rule is until you are actively winning the battle against the illness, you consume zero refined carbohydrates and zero processed foods.
Zero.
Furthermore, all sugar must be eliminated. No breads, no pastas, no cakes. But I want to pause here and just, play the voice of the listener for a second.
Sure, go for it.
If I am going through a grueling medical treatment and you tell me I can't even have a piece of toast or a warm bowl of oatmeal to settle my stomach, I mean, I am feeling incredibly deprived and overwhelmed. Why does it have to be this extreme?
It is incredibly restrictive, yes. And acknowledging that psychological hurdle is so important.
Yeah.
But we have to look at the mechanism of what those foods actually do internally. This isn't about some arbitrary dietary purity. It is about stopping oxidative stress.
Okay, we hear oxidative stress thrown around a lot in health circles. What is it, practically speaking?
So think of oxidative stress like rust developing on the metal frame of a car.
Okay.
When you consume highly processed foods, refined flours, and concentrated sugars, your body creates these byproducts called free radicals during digestion.
Right.
And these free radicals, they basically bounce around your circulatory system, essentially chipping the paint off your cells and causing them to rust. And that chemical wear and tear triggers a massive inflammatory response.
So your immune system has to mobilize to clean up the rust, basically.
Exactly. And when a body is undergoing cancer treatment, it is already enduring immense systemic trauma. It needs every single iota of its immune resources dedicated to repairing healthy tissue and supporting recovery.
It can't be distracted.
Right. It simply cannot afford to waste precious metabolic energy fighting off dietary poisons. Every time you eat a heavily processed meal, you are basically lighting a secondary fire that your exhausted immune system now has to go put out.
Wow. Okay, that really reframes it from I'm not allowed to eat bread to I am actively choosing not to distract my immune system.
Exactly. It's about agency.
But I do have to push back on some of the specific bans because they target things we generally consider, well, healthy. Like, it says to completely eliminate artificial sweeteners, sugar-free soft drinks, and even 100% pure fruit juice.
Yeah, that catches a lot of people off guard.
Sugar-free drinks I can sort of grasp, but how does a glass of 100% natural orange juice negatively impact you?
This really forces us to reevaluate how we define healthy, and it all comes down to how the liver processes fructose. But let's tackle the sugar-free drinks first.
Okay.
Yes, they lack caloric sugar. But non-nutritive sweeteners are still complex, synthetic chemicals. So to a fragile, depleted immune system, they act as foreign compounds that the liver and kidneys have to work overtime to filter and eliminate.
So even without the calories, you are still creating, like, metabolic friction.
Exactly. Now, let's look at the pure fruit juice. When you eat a whole apple or a whole orange, the natural sugar, the fructose, are locked inside a matrix of complex dietary fiber, the pulp, basically.
Right.
That fiber acts like a sponge. When it hits your stomach, the sponge slowly releases the sugar over hours, giving your liver plenty of time to process it safely into usable energy.
Okay, but when you juice it,
When you juice it, you throw away the sponge. You're left with a highly concentrated liquid dose of fructose.
which is just a massive hit of sugar.
Right. If eating the whole fruit is like dripping water onto a sponge, drinking the juice is like dumping a bucket of water onto concrete. It floods the system instantly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that rapid-fire fructose spike hits the liver all at once, causes a massive spike in insulin, and triggers an inflammatory response. In a state of intense medical recovery, your body simply cannot handle that kind of metabolic whiplash.
That is wild. The packaging of the food, like the fiber is just as important as the nutrient itself.
It really is.
And the protocol takes this clean slate concept even further. Like, it recommends cutting out all starches, including potatoes and all grains, no brown rice, no oats, and you don't even think about reintroducing them until you have been in remission for at least 6 months to 2 years.
Yeah, it really highlights how desperate the body is for a low-inflammation environment. It basically forces a complete metabolic reset. You are starving the inflammatory pathways.
So if juices, sodas, and comforting starches are entirely off the table, what are the alternatives? Like, what do we actually drink?
Well, plain water, obviously.
Right. But it also points to unprocessed herbal teas. And it specifies making tea from actual whole leaves, like loose green tea, not the processed dust you find in cheap tea bags.
That distinction matters.
And to flavor it, the suggestion is fresh squeezed lemon, freshly grated ginger, or cinnamon. And the source actually notes that cinnamon is phenomenal for stabilizing blood sugar and metabolic rate.
What is brilliant there is that you are replacing flavorings with functional ingredients. Like ginger contains gingerol, which is a potent anti-inflammatory compound. Lemon provides a gentle, slow-absorbing vitamin C boost without that fructose flood we talked about with juice.
Right, because you aren't drinking the whole fruit's worth of juice, just a squeeze.
Exactly. And cinnamon actively improves insulin sensitivity. So you are taking a really simple beverage and turning it into a tool that stabilizes your metabolism.
Okay, so we've stopped the bleeding, essentially. We've eliminated the oxidative rust, the sugar spikes, the metabolic friction. The field is completely cleared. So now, how do we rebuild?
This is where we transition from playing defense to playing offense. We have to give the immune system the actual building blocks it needs to regenerate.
And the philosophy introduces what I'm calling the 4 pillars of highly beneficial foods. Let's just walk through them. Pillar 1 is the berry family: raspberries, blueberries, strawberries.
Fantastic antioxidants.
Yeah. Pillar 2 is cruciferous vegetables. And I love this little fact. There are apparently over 3,000 varieties in this family.
It's a huge family.
We are talking cauliflower, broccoli, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. So if you are someone who gags at the smell of steamed broccoli, you still have 2,999 other options to explore.
That is the perfect way to look at it, honestly, because food fatigue is very real, especially during medical treatments. So knowing the sheer variety available within a single beneficial family is incredibly empowering.
Totally. Pillar 3 is leafy greens like Swiss chard and spinach. And then pillar 4 is citrus fruits: oranges, limes, lemons, high in vitamin C, obviously.
Right.
But simply buying these foods isn't enough, is it? The protocol has very strict rules on how you prepare them, specifically focusing on this concept of bioavailability. Can you break that down for us? What does bioavailability actually mean when I'm standing in my kitchen?
Yeah, so bioavailability simply means how much of a nutrient your body can actually unlock, absorb, and use, versus how much just passes straight through your digestive tract and ends up in the toilet.
Okay.
You can eat a massive bowl of spinach, but if you prepare it wrong, your body might only absorb, say, 10% of the iron in it.
Wow. So how does preparation change that?
The source strongly advises eating these 4 pillars raw or very lightly steamed. When you heavily boil or roast vegetables, especially those cruciferous ones, the heat destroys the delicate enzymes that your body actually needs to digest and absorb the nutrients.
Oh, I see.
You're essentially cooking the utility out of the food.
So raw is best. And for seasoning, the recommendation is to make mixed salads heavily utilizing unrefined, pure vinegar, along with simple salt and pepper. Which, here's where it gets really interesting, finally brings us back to the hook of this deep dive.
The famous recipe.
The recipe that sounds like a culinary disaster. Blending raw cauliflower with an entire orange, specifically including the peel, plus a dash of vinegar and black pepper. Why does this philosophy swear by this exact combination?
It is the ultimate example of hacking your body's bioavailability. Let's look at the ingredients.
Yeah.
Raw cauliflower is an absolute powerhouse for the immune system. It's packed with sulfur compounds that help the liver detoxify.
Right.
But as anyone who has ever eaten raw cauliflower knows, it can be intensely bitter and chalky. It's almost impossible to consume
Ugh.
in large liquid quantities.
Right, nobody's ordering a venti iced cauliflower puree at the coffee shop.
Exactly, no one wants that. Now look at the orange peel. We instinctively peel oranges and throw the rind in the garbage. But the peel actually contains massive, concentrated amounts of vitamin C and specialized flavonoids, often significantly more than the fleshy fruit inside.
Wait, really? So the part we throw in the compost bin actually holds the core utility of the fruit? That completely flips how I look at meal prep.
It does. By blending the whole orange peel and all, you capture that enormous immune-boosting payload. But here is where the culinary chemistry kicks in.
Okay, I'm ready.
From a flavor perspective, the intense aromatic tanginess of the orange oils in the peel, combined with the sharp acidity of the vinegar and the heat of the pepper, it chemically masks the sulfurous bitterness of the raw cauliflower.
Oh, wow.
The acid essentially overwrites the bitter receptors on your tongue. So it transforms what would be this harsh, gag-inducing vegetable sludge into a palatable, hyperpotent nutritional tool.
That is genuinely brilliant. You are basically bypassing your taste buds' defense mechanisms to deliver exactly what the immune system needs. So we've covered the psychological bandwidth and we've covered the physical fuel, the food. But this protocol, and remember, the source comes from a background in energy healing and ancient sciences. It introduces a third, invisible layer of complementary support, which is the body's energetic battery.
Right. This is where the conversation shifts from the biochemical to the bioenergetic.
Yeah. The protocol points out a very grim reality that anyone who has been through modern oncology knows all too well. Traditional treatments like chemotherapy and radiation are essentially scorched earth tactics.
Yes.
They do exactly what they're supposed to do. They destroy the cancer, but the collateral damage is massive. They completely deplete the immune system, dropping its functionality to essentially zero. The body's internal battery is completely empty.
It is a state of profound, systemic, physiological exhaustion. The cells are stripped of their basic vitality.
So to combat this, the philosophy advocates incorporating energy healing or restorative yoga practices. The goal, as it's described, is for the practitioner to act almost like a set of jumper cables. They are transferring energy to the patient to dramatically jumpstart and recharge that wiped-out immune system.
Right.
Now, just to impartially report the claims made in this philosophy, the author notes that in their personal practice, they have seen a 100% success rate in cancer reversal when combining these natural energetic methods together with modern medical treatment.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to view that specific claim objectively. That is the author's personal, professional anecdote. It is not a peer-reviewed clinical guarantee, and listeners definitely shouldn't take it as one.
Of course.
However, the true value here isn't in chasing a magical promise. The profound takeaway is the paradigm shift in how we approach the trauma of healing.
What do you mean?
Well, modern medicine is hyper-focused on the invader, right? The chemotherapy targets the tumor. The radiation targets the mutated cells. But while the disease is being attacked, who is taking care of the host?
The patient themselves.
Exactly. The patient's physical and energetic body is the battlefield taking all the collateral damage.
Yeah.
So holistic practices, whether it's a meticulously bioavailable diet, the rigorous protection of positive psychology, or the restorative nervous system calming practice of energy work, they are desperately needed to support, rebuild, and recharge the host during that brutal war.
That brings us full circle to the ultimate survival toolkit we've explored today. It starts by securing your medical treatment, but then immediately bringing a registered dietitian onto your team to manage the supply lines.
Yes.
It demands cultivating a fiercely positive psychology to stop that cortisol drip and keep your nervous system out of panic mode. It requires relentlessly eliminating processed foods, refined carbs, and liquid sugar so your immune system doesn't waste energy fighting your diet.
And then you rebuild. You bring in the 4 pillars, the berries, the cruciferous vegetables, the leafy greens, and the citrus with the peel, and you prepare them raw or lightly steamed to unlock that bioavailability.
And finally, you utilize restorative energy practices to jumpstart a deeply depleted immune system. For you listening right now, whether you are currently supporting a loved one through this battle, prepping for your own medical journey, or if you are just deeply curious about the frontiers of holistic health, This roadmap is fundamentally about reclaiming agency.
It really is.
When you are facing a massive diagnosis, it is so easy to feel powerless, like you are just a passenger on a clinical conveyor belt. But what you put in your blender, who you allow in your social circle, how you manage your internal stress, those are powerful, tangible levers of control.
They absolutely are. And, this raises an important question, a final thought to kind of leave you with.
Okay, let's hear it.
This protocol advocates so strictly for eliminating processed foods, liquid fructose, and fake sugars because an immune system in crisis literally cannot afford the metabolic energy required to process them.
Right.
But it makes you wonder if these artificial items and dietary rust are toxic and demanding enough to hinder a body that is actively fighting for its life. Well, what kind of silent daily tax are they levying on our immune systems right now when we consider ourselves perfectly healthy?
Wow. That is a question that definitely changes how you look at the grocery store aisle. It reminds us that whether the battlefield is a sterile hospital room or just our own kitchen, we are the ultimate quartermasters of our own health. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take care of yourselves, and we will catch you next time.
Until next time.